They told us that work was noble, that rising early, clocking in, and dedicating the bulk of our waking hours to the service of an institution was the mark of a responsible adult. From childhood, we were taught to equate discipline with compliance, success with salary, and purpose with productivity. The rhythm of our lives was mapped out before we ever chose it. School to job, job to promotion, promotion to retirement. A life spent climbing invisible ladders built inside invisible cages. We didn't question it because everyone around us was doing the same. The world called it normal. We called it life. Before we go further, if these reflections stir something in you, a quiet recognition, a pause that feels like truth brushing against illusion, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, not out of habit, but out of intention. Because somewhere out there, another soul is asking the same silent questions you are. Leave a comment, too, not for engagement's sake, but to add your voice to this conversation about waking up. It began centuries ago. The lie, I mean. Not as a sinister conspiracy, but as a slow evolution of control, disguised as progress. The Industrial Revolution was hailed as humanity's leap into modernity, a triumph of ingenuity over nature. Machines roared to life, cities swelled with opportunity, and factories promised stability. But hidden within that triumph was a subtle shift. Humanity became an accessory to production. The measure of a person was no longer their creativity, their depth, or their connection to others. It was their efficiency. Schools were redesigned not to nurture curiosity, but to standardize obedience. Bells signaled transitions, desks were arranged in rows, and report cards replaced wonder with measurable worth. We were not educated to think. We were trained to perform. As the machine age matured, so did its invisible ideology. The factory floor transformed into the office cubicle, but the essence remained the same. Instead of gears and smoke, there were screens and schedules. Instead of physical chains, there were deadlines, hierarchies, and the fear of falling behind. We called it civilization, but it was domestication. The 8-to-5 job became the new church, complete with rituals of devotion, the commute as pilgrimage, the coffee as communion, the paycheck as salvation. We bowed not to gods, but to goals, quarterly reports, KPIs, and performance reviews. The system thrived because it gave us just enough comfort to stop asking questions. The salary was not freedom. It was a leash woven from convenience. It bought distraction, not liberation. You could have the house, the car, the streaming subscription, the weekend getaway. Just enough to feel rewarded, but never enough to feel free. And so, generation after generation, we traded the unknown for the predictable, mistaking stability for peace. We forgot that work was once a means, not an identity. Ancient cultures wove labor into the rhythm of community, farmers, artists, builders, thinkers. Their work was a dance with necessity, not an act of servitude. They worked to live, not live to work. But as centuries passed, the narrative changed. Labor became moralized. Hard work became virtue. Idleness became sin. To rest was to waste potential. To question the structure was to rebel against common sense. It was brilliant, really. The most effective form of control is the one people defend as freedom. Today, the illusion continues, but it wears a smile. Offices rebrand as open spaces. Corporations preach purpose, and the modern worker becomes a team member on a mission. But the essence hasn't changed. The hours are still owned, the dreams still deferred, the energy still harvested to fuel a machine that was never built for your liberation. You are encouraged to dream, but only within the boundaries of profitability. You may speak, but only in the language of productivity. You may rest, but only if it increases tomorrow's efficiency. And so, millions wake up every morning, not because they are alive, but because they are programmed. The alarm clock doesn't just ring, it summons. It calls the worker back into the fold. Coffee dulls the ache of resistance. The commute numbs the awareness of captivity. The office lights flicker on and a quiet resignation fills the air. The faces change, the roles differ, but the pattern repeats. Humans living in cycles of quiet despair, calling it ambition. It's not that the 8-to-5 job is inherently evil. It's that it was never designed for your fulfillment. It was designed for continuity, to keep the machine turning, to sustain an economy built not on creation, but consumption. The worker consumes what the system produces, and in turn, the system consumes the worker. Time becomes currency, traded away for things that can never replace it. The tragedy is not that people work. It's that they forget why they work, who they work for, and what they lose in the process. History shows that the system rewards conformity more than genius. The dreamers, the artists, the thinkers, they are often seen as impractical until the system finds a way to monetize their vision. Then they become celebrated, not for their rebellion but for their profitability. Creativity is tolerated only when it serves capital. True freedom, the kind that threatens the structure, is quietly mocked, dismissed as unrealistic, idealistic, naive. The modern world doesn't burn heretics, it bores them into submission. And yet there is a growing restlessness, a quiet revolt brewing beneath the surface of polite society. More and more people are realizing that the promise of the 8-to-5 is hollow. They are questioning why decades of their lives should be spent fulfilling someone else's dream while theirs wither on the side. They are discovering that financial stability without purpose feels like slow death. That achievement without meaning leaves an ache no promotion can heal. But breaking free is terrifying because the system doesn't just imprison the body. It colonizes the mind. It teaches you to fear uncertainty, to distrust your own curiosity. It whispers that your worth lies in your productivity, your status in your title, your security in your employer. And when you start to question it, the fear creeps in. What if I fail? What if I end up with nothing? The truth is, those questions are illusions too, built to keep you inside. The real danger is not failing outside the system. It's never living inside it. We have mistaken survival for living. We have confused being busy with being alive. Productivity has become the new faith, worshipped by billions, unquestioned, unexamined. We measure life in hours worked, emails sent, meetings attended, as though the essence of existence could be tallied on a spreadsheet. The soul suffocates in fluorescent light, but we call it progress. The heart longs for silence, but we drown it with notifications. We have built a world where noise replaces meaning, motion replaces purpose, and exhaustion replaces achievement. The lie persists because it is convenient. It gives us identity, structure, something to hold on to. To abandon it would mean confronting the abyss, the terrifying openness of true freedom. It would mean asking ourselves, what do I truly want? What is worth my time, my energy, my life? These are dangerous questions for a system built on automation, and so the 8-to-5 job continues. Not because it is unbreakable, but because it is comfortable. It offers just enough stability to keep rebellion theoretical. Most people don't want freedom. They want security dressed as freedom. They prefer a predictable cage to an uncertain horizon. The system thrives on that trade-off. It doesn't need your passion, only your participation. But somewhere deep down, the human spirit remembers. It remembers the taste of unstructured time, the feeling of creating without purpose, the joy of existing without measurement. It remembers that before there were offices, there were oceans. Before deadlines, there were sunsets. Before resumes, there were stories. The soul aches for those forgotten freedoms, whispering beneath the noise of modern life. This is not all there is. The awakening begins not with rebellion, but with awareness, with seeing the structure for what it is, not a natural law, but a man-made illusion. The moment you question it, even silently, a crack appears in the wall. You begin to notice how much of your life has been outsourced, your thoughts, your values, your definitions of success. And in that noticing, freedom begins to flicker. The journey out of the 8 to 5 conditioning is not about quitting your job overnight. It's about reclaiming ownership of your time, your attention, your purpose. It's about rediscovering what you would do if no one was watching, if money were not the master. It's about learning to live, not just survive. Because the real revolution isn't external, it's internal. It's the quiet decision to stop being a cog and start being a creator. If the system is a dream, then waking up is the most radical act. But waking up is painful. It requires unlearning, detaching, daring to exist outside validation. Yet once you taste it, you realize the truth. You were never born to fit inside a schedule. You were born to experience, to create, to love, to question, to be. The 8 to 5 world was built for maintenance, not meaning. You were built for more. And so, perhaps the greatest rebellion of our time is simply this: to reclaim your life from the clock. To remember that time is not a wage to earn, but a gift to live. To choose purpose over productivity, depth over routine, presence over performance. The system may not collapse overnight, but within you, it begins to lose power the moment you stop believing its story. Because in the end, the 8 to 5 job was never just about work. It was about control. And freedom was never just about quitting. It was about remembering. Remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Remembering that the value of a life cannot be calculated in hours. Remembering that the truest success is not found in titles, but in time well lived. So, as you return to your desk, your meetings, your routines, remember this: the system depends on your forgetfulness, but your awareness is its undoing.